Hi there, and thanks for joining me again on this Introduction to Killteam Basic series. We're almost there, guys, with what I wanted to cover on this basic introduction over the last couple of weeks. I've got maybe a couple of videos left, and then we'll get into the narrative side of things. Then, perhaps we'll start looking at a couple of games, and we'll intermix that with some painting and modelling videos aimed specifically at Killteam, and jump backwards and forwards between looking at rules, looking at teams, and then looking at the hobby side of building and playing. Well, last time we looked at the various phases that make up a turning point. This time I want to look specifically inside of the firefight phase and look at the actions that can take place during that phase. Now, even more specifically, I want to look at the universal actions that any operative can do during the firefight phase. Now, there are some additional actions that operatives can use depending on the mission, and there are some unique actions as well, obviously, that might be listed on your data card. We're just going to look at those universal actions. Before we do though, do me a solid and hit the subscribe button if you've not already. Hopefully you're enjoying the content and you're coming along with me on this Killteam journey. If you have already hit the subscribe, do leave me a thumbs up. I really appreciate your feedback, you interacting with me, and how much the channel's grown over the past couple of months. With that said, let's jump on in and take a look at these actions. Since we're starting at the beginning and I'm trying to keep it simple, let's have a look at what actions are. Actions are pretty much what it says on the tin. The things that your operatives can do inside of the firefight phase. Things like moving, shooting, fighting. There's 9 universal actions that operatives can perform. We'll look at them one at a time, and where needed, I'll put some examples up here. We can roll some dice and talk about them in a little bit more depth. The first thing we're going to look at is the standard move. Now, this action costs 1 AP, and it's the way that as operatives move around the kill zone. There's a couple of caveats to things you can do as part of the move, and we could look at those later on in another video if you want me to. If you do, let me know down in the comments if you want me to cover things like the flying and also the climbing mechanic. But for now, let's look at the standard move. The key thing to remember here is that the unit of measurement can never be less than 1 triangle. So that's 1 inch. Now, most operatives say they have a movement of 3 circle or 6 inches. They can take that movement in increments no smaller than 1 inch or 1 triangle. Even if you do make a move that is smaller than 1 triangle, it must be rounded up to a triangle. So you could effectively move in a hexagon, that sort of pattern. 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. You can never exceed your movement characteristic. It's as simple as that. Next, let's take a look at the charge action. Again, this is a 1 AP action. What does the charge do? Well, in effect, it's similar to the standard move. However, if you've already done a move, a fallback, or a dash as part of your activation, you cannot use the charge action. Now, a charge allows you to move up to the standard movement characteristic of your operative. So in the case of the custodies we've been using as an example, that would be 3 circle plus an additional circle. So effectively 8 inches. The caveat here is that you have to finish within engagement range of an enemy operative. This is to simulate rushing towards an opponent and then engaging them in combat. If you're already engaged in combat, you also cannot take the charge action. It's also worth noting here that you can't charge an enemy operative that is already engaged with a friendly operative. Just remember that. Make sure that the enemy operative is a valid target to charge. Otherwise, it's a no-go, I'm afraid. Pretty simple. Now, let's look at the fallback action. This is a 2 AP action, and what the idea is it allows you to disengage from combat. Now, you can't use this action if you've already moved or charged during this operative's activation. How do we do this? Well, we use the standard movement characteristic of our operative, and you must move outside of an engagement range of an enemy operative. You can move through an engagement range of an enemy operative, but you must end the fallback action outside of the engagement range of any enemy operatives. Let's have a look. The pickup action is a 1 AP action. This can be used to pick up an objective or token in certain missions and well, move it around. You've got to do this within one triangle of the objective. What I would suggest is if you're playing a mission where you can pick up an objective, definitely read the rules inside there. The dash action is a 1 AP action and it's used when you need an extra bit of speed. It's used much in the same way as a standard move, only this time, rather than being able to move your standard movement characteristic of, say, 3 circle, you can only move 1 square. Now, you can't use this action if you've already done a charge during this activation. However, you can use it if you've already done a move. So, potentially, using our example of the Custodes, we could move 3 circle and then perform the dash action, which was let us perform an extra movement of 1 square. Let's have a look at an example. The pass action is a 1 AP action. What does the pass action do? Well, it's a placeholder really. If there's nothing else you wish to do with your operative during that operative's activation, you can use a pass action more than once to use up any remaining action points, pass over to the opposing player for their activation. The Overwatch action can be quite complicated to understand at first. I'd strongly recommend you have a good read through the core rulebooks. However, let's take a look at it and try and gist it for you. Now, Overwatch is a 0 AP action. Now, you can only use this action once per operative in a turning point. You must also not be engaged in combat and your operative must have the engage order. It allows you to make a long-ranged shot with a worsened ballistic skill of 1. Let's have a look at how this works. Notice here the Custodes is activated already and the Orc Commander is still left to be activated, and let's assume that there's other unactivated operatives on the Orc Commando team on the board. So, shooting with the Sentinel Blade would normally be an attack 4, hitting on 2 pluses. But remember, this time what we've got to do is worsen our ballistic skill by 1. So that will be hitting on 3 pluses. So we get 3 hits. One of them are critical. The Commando gets to save. Now that's a DF3 on 5 plus. 1 standard save then, so a total of 7 damage for the Sentinel Blade firing. Overwatch. And finally, we come on to the last 2 actions. Shooting and fighting. Now, I think both of these are much easier to explain with some examples, so let's just do that. Firstly, let's take a look at shooting. How we shoot, how we defend, and how that's resolved. I know we've already covered it, but there's no harm in going over it again. It's nice and quick. We're going to use the Commando Boy Slugger to attack the Custodes. Now, for this, we're going to be attacking with 4 and hitting on 4 pluses. So we've rolled 4, 4, 2, 2, so we hit twice. Now let's roll defense on Custodes, so that's DF3 on a 2 plus. And we save them all. So, lucky Custodes, no damage this time. And finally, let's take a look at fighting. Again, this is a 1 AP action. Let's have a look at an example and go over it. Make sure we've got it. Custodes with a Sentinel Blade and an Orc with a Chopper. Let's do this. The Sentinel Blade's an attack 5 hitting on 2 ups, and the Orc Commando's Chopper is an attack 4 hitting on 3 ups. So these are the rolls we've got. The top one is obviously the Custodes. So what we're going to do here? Well, we're going in initiative order, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attack with the Custodes. So that's a strike, and the Orc parries. Then it's back to the Custodes. So we're going to strike again, and the Orc is once again going a parry. Now, again back to the Custodes. Who would have thought we're going to strike again? However, this time, the Orc is also going to strike back. It's their last dice, so why not? Now the Custodes is going to parry, so we've not taken any damage with him yet, and then we get to attack again because the Orc player has no dice left, and that's a crit, so that hits with the full damage. The Orc takes a 6 damage. That's it done. So the end of this was the Orc player took 6 damage. So to summarise this video, guys, you should have a really good understanding of all of the universal actions we can currently perform inside of Killteam. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave me a thumbs up. If you've not already, do make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate it and it really helps the channel grow. Thanks for all the interactions, as I said earlier, I really do appreciate it. Next time we're going to have a look at line of sight. But until then guys, have a good hobby week, and remember, if you're going to do crack, make sure it's plastic. See ya!